gather your materials for reading workshop. Today you'll need your ELA notebook, a pencil, and you're going to need your Ecology for Kids text, which is going to be in your Journeys textbook. So gather those materials and we'll get started. Readers, we're going to continue to learn how we can explain events or ideas from informational text. But today our strategy is going to be to map it. We're still going to be seeing connections across our reading in order to help us to hold on to the details of the what and the why. But today we're going to be creating mind maps. And we're not only going to think about the what and the why, but we're going to realize that sometimes we need to add a few more W's to create our mind maps. So we want to also be thinking about the who. We'll still be thinking about the what. We'll be thinking about where. We'll be thinking about when. We can still be thinking about the why. And we might even throw a W in or an H in there. And we might be thinking about the how. So that's what we'll be thinking about as we create our mind maps. And today, our learning target will be to, as I said, continue to explain events or ideas from text by making connections between different ideas in an informational text by creating mind maps. And we'll know we hit our learning target today when we can make connections in a text called Ecology for Kids, and then we'll create a mind map to help us to hold on to all the details for different events or ideas in order to explain them. So let's get started. Readers, watch how I do this work in a section from Ecology for Kids, Ecology. Let's read the text first. What does the word ecology mean? The term was invented by Ernst Haeckel, a German biologist. He joined two Greek words, oikos, meaning house, and logi? Well, I know the word logic, so maybe logi, meaning the study of. Together they mean the study of the house. The house Haeckel had in mind is our planet Earth. Earth is home for all living things. Humans, animals, plants, fungi? I know fungus, but I'm thinking maybe fungi, and even tiny microbes. To study a house is to learn how its residents use it. An ecologist is a scientist who studies the relationships between organisms and their environment. The environment is an organism's surroundings. It may include water, gases, rocks, and temperature. Ecologists also study the delicate balance of using the environment while protecting it. Okay, so let's get to the work. Well, I know I have to explain events or ideas from text by making connections between different events and ideas. Well, we know that this is all about the idea of ecology, so I want to be able to explain the idea of ecology. So I'm going to create my mind map. I'm going to put ecology in the middle. Now, I have to make connections between the different ideas that go back to ecology. Well, that's the beauty of a mind map, because everything I put on the mind map has to connect back to ecology. And I can make these connections by thinking about those 5 questions. Watch how I do this work. So first, I want you to think about each question one by one to see if there's any details to collect and put on your mind map. Okay, so who? Is there any who details that connect back to ecology? Well, yes. Ernst Haeckel was a German biologist who invented the word ecology. So I put who, and then I put those 3 details that connect back to the who. Well, now the what. Okay, so what ideas connect back? What is ecology? Well, it's the study of the house, which in this case is planet Earth. And if I think about the study of Earth, Earth is the home for all living things. Okay, where? Well, the where I'm thinking is Earth, but I just told you a little bit about that, so I don't think I need a whole section for that. When? I didn't see anything about when. Why? Well, of course, why do we study ecology? Well, now we have scientists, ecologists, who study it because they want to study the relationship between organisms and the environment. They also want to study the balance of using the environment while protecting it. And I didn't see anything about the how. Okay, so do you see how I went through each question one by one to see if there were any details that I could collect to put on my mind map? Now I want to look back over my mind map and I want to think, How can I use these details to explain ecology? Well, here's how it looks. I'm going to start with, what is ecology? Ecology is the study of house or the planet Earth. So that made the most sense for me to tell you what it was. But now I'm going to go to those who details because obviously Ernest was really, really important. So then I think I'm going to go what, maybe to the who, and then I think I'm going to end with the why. Okay, back to it. Let me start over. Ecology is the study of house or the planet Earth. The word ecology was invented by Ernest Haeckel, a German biologist. He wanted to study the house or the planet Earth. He was hoping to study it as a home for all living things. Ecologists are scientists who study ecology. They study the relationship between organisms and environment. They also study the balance of using the environment while protecting it. Hopefully, this taught you a little bit more about ecology. I was making connections between the ideas by creating this mind map. So step 1, create your mind map with your big idea or event in the middle. Step 2, for each section on your mind map, ask yourself those questions and stop when you find some details that connect back to each question. Step 2, well, that's step 2. So step 1, think about the questions. Step 2, create your mind map. Step 3, use your mind map and put it all together so that you can explain your event or your idea. Let me review. Step 1, think about those questions. Step 2, put any details that match on your mind map. Step 3, put it all together and write to explain your event or your idea. Readers, let's start this work together. Let's turn to page 444 if you have your Journeys book. Pause here to turn to page 444 if you have your Journeys text. Okay, so let's do a we do. Let's first think about how we can start this work together before you go off and do this work independently. We're going to be reading a section called Ecosystems. So we know we're going to create a mind map that's going to help us explain the idea of an ecosystem. Let's read. Scientists call Earth and its surrounding atmosphere the biosphere. To study it, they divide it into parts called ecosystems. An ecosystem is a natural area where groups of living and non-living things interact with their environment. Forests, lakes, swamps, and deserts are all examples of ecosystems. One ecosystem and the organisms that live in it may depend on other ecosystems. For example, a bear that lives in a forest might use a lake to find fish to eat and water to drink. In the same way, the problems of one ecosystem often directly affect the organisms of other ecosystems. Take, for example, the problems of the tropical rainforest. Okay, so in order to do this work, let's get started together. Let's think back to those 5 W's and the H. And we're going to go down through them one by one. And what I want you to think is, which ones are you going to start by clustering on your mind map? You're not going to collect the details, you're just going to jot the different W's or the H that you think you need to collect the details and make the connections between ideas. Okay, so let's get started. Who? Are there any who details that you found? If there are, start a who cluster. What about what details? Are there any details about what that are going to help you explain what an ecosystem is? Is there any what details? You ask yourself, what is an ecosystem? Are there any details to answer that? If there are, add a what cluster. Okay, what else? Where? Ask yourself, are there any where details? Where? Details about places that you might include. Ask yourself when. Are there any when details? Dates or times, maybe seasons? If there are when details, jot the word when. What about the question why? Are there any details about why that might explain a why for something about the ecosystem? Why something happened? If you need to, add another circle cluster. Who, what, where, when, why. Now let's get to the how. Are there any how details? how something came to be that has to deal with ecosystems, how something happened, how something was solved that tie back to ecosystems. You know the drill by now. Jot how if there were any how details. Pause here to take one more look at the text and be sure that you have all the clusters you need to collect the details that will help you find those connections back to the idea of ecosystems. Okay, readers, now it's time to collaborate. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to share with others just the clusters that you put on your mind map. For example, I would have written who, what, and why for mine. And by sharing those with others, as you go to create your mind map, you'll be able to think which ones you used and were there other ones that other people found. And maybe that will make you go back and rethink to make sure that you collect all the details. You get all of the connections you need in order to explain the big idea of an ecosystem. So remember to do this work, to explain the events and ideas in informational text, we're going to make connections. And we're going to create that mind map by thinking about the W's and the H. Then we're going to collect all of those details on a mind map. And finally, we'll use all of those details in order to help us to explain the event or the idea. As easy as 1, 2,